Hey, welcome to Conversionations episode 4. This is Manuel da Costa from Effective Experiments, and we're live in Manchester, United Kingdom, for a special one-off live podcast with none other than Bart Schutz. Bart Schutz from Online Dialogue. Welcome to the podcast. Good to have you here.
It's a real pleasure to be here, Manuel.
Yeah, good to have you here. So we were in doing a meetup last night in Manchester.
Right here
in the same venue, and we thought let's do a podcast and let's talk about psychology. Now, the one question we talked about last night was this feature that we have within Effective Experiments, which is quite a big feature that people like and they want. And I wanted to get your evaluation of the psychology behind it.
What feature?
Okay, so this is the feature where people can share their tests, their experiments with the wider team, and say, version A or version B1, choose which one is winning, and then based on that they can gamify it and make it fun and easy, and put leaderboards and stuff. So that's already there, and some people really like that. So I wanted to know, is this something that CROs should focus on?
Right, so I have a question in return, but I think I know the answer. What is the main reason that they request that feature? Because they want more engagement with the experimentation?
Yeah, that's the idea behind it.
So then they tend to say, can we sort of gamify it?
Yeah, because the idea, as with Effective Experiments, like our vision is making experimentation the core part of the business. So it's like sharing, making it fun, making it easy, that kind of stuff. So
from a behavioral scientific point of view, gamification, making it visible how what gets uprated or not, is what we call an extrinsic motivator.
Okay.
Because it's not I intrinsically want to engage more with the tool or with the experimental program, but I want to gain points. I want to have more likes. I want to get badges. Be higher up the leaderboard, etc.
Sure.
But that's an extrinsic motivator. So the behavior becomes dependent on this motivator, which in a short term is a good thing because they will be engaged more.
Okay.
So gamification is a really good thing to get people engaged on a short term horizon. Right? So if you're going to experiment, it'll probably feel good. The big thing to look out for is that on the long term, you're not able to keep it gamified all of the time. Right? So there's at some point they're on top of the leaderboard, then what? At some point you're out of badges, right? At some point you're out of points, right?
Sure.
And then you actually make the behavior dependent on this gamified interface, and you will see that actually people stop using it and not be engaged, but you also took away the intrinsic motivation. So it's if you do it, you should, as soon as possible, as soon as people get engaged, sort of get rid of it and make them attribute their engagement with the program to intrinsic motivators. So how cool that you're participating in this and believe in the value of experimentation, etc., etc.
Right.
It's maybe as a metaphor, it's like raising kids.
Sure.
If I want my kids to finish their plate at night, I might give them an external reward. I might gamify it. I might leaderboard. This is the kid of. I only got 2, right? So it's not a large leaderboard.
Sure.
Right? That finished most of his or her plates, and that will have a short-term effect.
Okay.
But I will have to keep on doing that, keep on rewarding that. Right? Typically, in the beginning, we gave extra desserts, but I'm not going to give extra desserts for the rest of my life. So I want to take the gamification and the rewards, extrinsic rewards, out as soon as possible, because actually in the end gamification tends to kill the behavior because it's not an intrinsic reward, it's an extrinsic reward. You want people to intrinsically want to participate, engage in the program,
right?
Not because they're getting badges, high leaderboard positions, etc.
Yeah.
And then there's another issue with how typically CRO tools nowadays have these leaderboards, best IDs, most voted IDs.
Yeah.
Is that, in all honesty, most experiments turn out inconclusive, right? A few of them actually go significantly worse than expected. So
Sure.
you're expecting an uplift, but the number of, if you're in an experimental program, the average winner ratio is probably between 5% and 50%. That means that more often than not, it's not a wall of fame, it's a wall of shame.
Right. Okay.
That's not very motivating either,
True,
right?
true,
So
yeah.
we all uploaded this idea. You know what? We were all wrong.
Right.
And wrong again, wrong
Yeah.
again, wrong again. And then what happens? Are they getting engaged more? Gamification is a very hard way to use in order to. It's a very short-term, powerful instrument, but it has to be, and this is very difficult. And then as soon as possible, made intrinsic.
So what you're saying is, like, when we consider leaderboards as well, is that
Yeah.
sort of competition in the context of conversion optimization the wrong thing? Because ultimately you're creating people competing against each other with
Yeah.
their ideas, and then what happens then?
Well, I've been in a lot of companies where the competition is actually a big issue.
Right.
And they're even, we're not going to mention, but I think you know who I'm referring to, where the culture of competition is actually a big problem nowadays.
Right.
Because this is a multidisciplinary field, right?
Sure.
You need data scientists, web analysts, you need behavioral experts or UX people, you need designers, developers, front-enders. There's so many disciplines involved. They need to cooperate together.
Right.
It's a joint effort.
Yeah.
If you make every step dependent on one person, if you have leaderboards where people are individually voting, individually praised for whatever, that's not creating a cohesive, cooperating culture.
Yeah.
And you need that.
You need that, right? Okay.
Yeah. And it's difficult because there's so many interdependencies, right? But in order to be very, very efficient, effective, have the best ideas, achieve the highest velocity with the highest quality uplifts in each experiment, you need to cooperate.
Okay. And with the idea itself, the idea is really not worth much unless it gets executed and built and stuff. So that game of attributing where the idea really succeeds is hard to measure. But again, as you see, if companies are focusing their, the leaderboards on who's come up with the idea and rewarding them based on
I'm not
that.
going to help you with a good idea.
Yeah,
because you know what?
Yeah.
Why would I?
Yeah.
You'll be praised for it. I'm not.
Exactly.
And that's
exactly.
what happens in a few of these larger companies where you actually get rewarded for bringing up good ideas. People stop cooperating, so I'm not going to improve your idea. So
Yeah.
I see you're going to make a mistake,
Yeah.
right? Because you got a good idea, but in the execution, in the way you create your challenge or your treatment condition, I see a small mistake and I'll shut my mouth.
Yeah,
right?
you wouldn't.
And I'm going to do another experiment, which is based actually on your ID.
Right.
And I'll be. This is not the way to.
No, correct.
Right?
So we want to encourage a culture of collaboration in companies doing optimization.
Yeah.
How do you see that happening? Would you
Well,
set
you
the
have
groundwork?
you have to reward the whole team.
Okay.
Right? So, but not on an individual level.
Okay.
And that I think there's still a big challenge for a lot of the tools out there to show the value of the team, right? On a management C-suite director level, we are not very capable yet to show the business value of these teams and of these programs. They still want to compare us against, PPC or social media marketing, and they don't see the value. Let alone that they see that this is sort of a validation of all your efforts. We've still got a way to go there, but the only way to really make sure that these teams are empowered and engaged is to reward them as teams. You did such a perfect job together, and also don't start competing between teams.
Okay.
That's also,
that's a whole level if you have many teams to compete with.
yeah,
Right? That's a different scale of problems you have over there.
yeah.
Who is responsible for this then? Who in the company should be responsible for the setting the rewards and making sure that people are rewarded accordingly on a
Right.
team basis rather than individual
so,
basis?
I think there are two aspects to this question. First of all are what I call the hygiene factors.
Right.
The hygiene factors are the responsibility of the highest management, because, for example, hygiene for me is enough development resources.
Okay.
Right? These experiments, all good ideas, but they have to be built. And that means that if there's a tech sprint which sort of interrupts the whole experimental program and all the tests wind down, then there's a new version of the site live, all our coding gets corrupted. That's hygiene.
Right.
But that's a very high level. This high level typically does not have the insights and the steering mechanisms reported at this level from the CRO teams and efforts. So there's a disconnect there, but it is their responsibility.
Okay.
But typically we go like, oh, we need more resources, and you can't show me why. You don't show me how big the problem is. You don't show me your regret. What's the business value of adding more front-end developers, etc.
Yeah.
Or back-end if you're server-side, whatever. So that's one. But as soon as hygiene, we're facilitating the process, then that's absolutely the CRO manager. So the product owner, if you have product teams that are doing CRO within their teams.
Yeah.
If you have a center of excellence team for CRO, then there's a large responsibility there. But again, I think that the most successful companies create this culture of experimentation, democratize the ideas. Anyone can bring in ideas. Everyone's rewarded for it. It's not that you will get all the credits.
Right.
It's a team effort, but we're all in this together. And that's the culture you should create as the product owner or CRO manager of a CRO team.
Okay. How can I use psychology in this? You're a psychologist. What psychological tips and tricks can I use in motivating these people?
So my first reaction always is stop thinking, stop talking, start acting and experimenting more, because you know what? Behavioral science is, if there's one thing we found out in the past, maybe 2,500, but let's say 50 years, is that it's very complex.
Okay.
And our own brain, our conscious minds, know very little about what drives human behavior. So you can think so much about how to improve something for your user, probably that time is not very effectively spent. It's better just to come up with ideas, also more irrational, counterintuitive ideas. Just experiment as much as possible, because the more you talk about it, the less you experiment, right? I still see a lot of companies where they do not track the amount of hours spent for each experiment.
Okay.
So typically they will talk over experiments a lot. They spend over 100 hours for each experiment, and I think, being a behavioral scientist, that is time wasted, because in 100 hours, if you wouldn't talk and think so much with your consciousness that's not aware of all the drivers of human behavior, then you could have run twice or maybe even 3 times the amount of experiments. That would definitely uplift the effectiveness of the program, bring more business value. So that's one.
Okay.
Right? But as soon as you're reaching your bandwidth, either statistically, right, so you can't experiment any more than that, unless your a priori power goes down, or you're just reaching the capacity of the teams, right? So you're very efficient, you don't spend too much time. Then the only way is not to improve the quantity of the experiment, but the quality.
Sure.
And that's, of course, a part where behavioral science can assist you with. But still, I believe it's way more easy typically to double the amount of experiments compared to doubling the average uplift or the winner ratio of the experimentation. But if you start looking at the quality or the input of those experiments, then behavioral scientists will be able to think outside the rational box, do experiments that feel counterintuitive or add friction at some points, or taking away the typical persuasion tactics that I'm not very fond of. Very often social proof is very counter-effective, but a good behavioral scientist knows under which circumstances these brain processes actually operate, and that will increase the number of winners, the insights you gain from it. And that brings me to another topic. If you run a lot of experiments, if you want to sort of build your customer intelligence on that, first-party customer intelligence, there's no more valid and reliable intelligence than your own experimental program.
Sure.
You need a behavioral scientist to get true insights out of all that data. Right. So behavioral scientists typically adds more data to it, looks at behavioral segments, looks whether the sun shines, right? Connects data like that, where others go like, why would that really influence? It's a huge influencer.
Yeah.
And that's definitely added value for a behavioral scientist. So it's, first of all, don't think too much, experiment more, because it's very hard to predict what works better, what not. And then if in the experimentation, actually there's another one,
okay,
which is behavioral scientists out of 4 years of university training, 1 year is about experimental design and statistics.
Okay, yeah, sure.
So they know about frequency.
They've set up experiments.
Statistics, and they know about base statistics. They know when to use a t-test or a ANOVA, you know.
Yeah.
And what it does with bandwidth and with power levels. They know a priori power analysis, etc. So that you're not wasting good ideas on inclusive tests. So that's also in the tests themselves improve just the quality of the experiments, but then also in the end build that customer intelligence based on all the experiments. That's a lot of reasons why I think it's very good.
Okay.
To either get a behavioral scientist or a team, or try to become a behavioral scientist yourself.
Now, talking about that, you have a course online, right?
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about that, and yeah.
You can just check out the page wheelofpersuasion.com/course. I have 18 and a half hours of lectures in there. So it's not a snappy, very short, I tell you a few tactics.
I think everyone wants the easy way, right?
It's not the easy one. This is the one if you really want to learn about how complex human behavior is and what is known in behavioral science. But it's very much focused on digital communication, on especially conversion rate optimization. We have a lot of A/B test examples just to show you how we put these scientific insights into practice. And I think it's a lot of fun, right? People that follow that course are typically very, very happy that they did it. I don't have to spread out the word too much because they do that. Right?
Awesome. But if you're interested in learning about the course, it's wheelofpersuasion.com/course. That's all the time we have for this special one-off live Conversionations with Bart Schutz. Thank you.
I have one request for people.
Go on. Yeah, by all means. Yeah.
So no, I actually have two.
Okay.
But this is sort of commitment and consistency, right? I'll ask for one.
Sure.
I'll take two.
Sure.
So the first one is, with all the experimentation, in my opinion, we're currently running the biggest psychological experiment ever. The amount of people in randomized controlled experiments, which we call A/B test, but is immense. There's an immense growth of understanding what drives human behavior, but we have to share it because it will be in the benefit for all of us. Right? I dislike a bit the fact that it's commercial companies that are now gaining this knowledge on what drives us without sharing it with the rest, because it's not in the benefit for all of us. So please share what you're finding and make it public. And then the second thing is, when you run experimentation, then typically the goal is a business goal, your company goal, right? It's your interest. There's another interest you should be analyzing, which is the customer interest. If there are vulnerable groups in your population, you should analyze the effects on those groups, because you might be hurting people like unintentionally. But if you do not analyze, you don't know whether you do it, right? And that might feel good, but you're still doing it. So I want to have a CRO world where running experiment is not only based on the company interests and goals and KPIs like conversion rates, customer lifetime values, but also on the more human well-being aspects like time spent, financially wise decisions, etc., in order to create a better world with a better understanding of what drives humans.
Nice. Bart, thank you for joining this special Conversionations, and for you watching or listening, thank you for joining Conversionations.com. This was brought to you by Effective Experiments. This is Manuel da Costa signing off. Thanks. Bye.